it's about. Okay, Judge, ready?
Yes.
All right. A politician rises on the backs of his friends, but it is through his enemies he will have to govern afterwards. Richard Hughes, British writer. Today I'm going to be looking at a couple things. First, topicality, then I'll be bringing up two contentions. Finally, looking at what the government has proposed in the last speech. Looking at how the politicians will be rising on the back of their friends, but they will have to fight through or govern through their enemies afterwards. Now let's look at this topicality argument. The government team defined the pretty much it's about time as happening right now, needs to happen right now. But I would also like to point out that in addition to it should happen right now, it actually should have happened in the past. This is my standard for this debate round is that of, I can't say it, but the standard is pretty much that it's about time is used as a phrase meaning it should have happened a long time ago. It's about time we did something towards this issue. And the second part of this is not only should it have happened a long time ago, but it needs to happen. It pretty much needs to happen now. Now, and the standard that we need to uphold is that it needs to achieve a long-term difference. This it's about time to change needs to achieve a long-term beneficial difference. We have an additional standard in today's debate, looking more at a portion of the resolution talking about real political unrest. The government has not defined what real political unrest was, and now I would like to take the time to explain to you, Judge, what real political unrest was. The government team based real political unrest pretty much means violence. The real aspect of the political unrest makes it so that we need to have a violent action.
Point of information.
Yes.
Are peaceful riots not part of political unrest?
They're not part of real political unrest. Now, if we look at a couple of examples of this real political unrest, we can look at the French Revolution. The French Revolution was real political unrest. Now, if we take a moment and look at a political unrest, we can see this in the example of the Tea Party. The Tea Party is a political unrest, but it is not a real political unrest. Now, the impact to this argument is that if we don't have the real political unrest, that being violence, there will be less clash within the round, and debate rounds are all about clash without actually causing harm. And the second thing is that it kills the opposition's prep time because we are preparing for the big things. We are preparing for the broader perspective.
Point of information.
Yes.
The Middle East crisis, are you saying that this is real political unrest in the Middle East right now or not?
Middle East, I am not aware.
What's happening in the Middle East, is it real political unrest or not in your opinion?
In my opinion, it is political unrest.
It is real political unrest?
It is political unrest. Now let's look at the first contention. That is violence. A violent political unrest is bad. Violence does not permanently solve the problems. If the Tea Party toted a machine gun, they would be harming their political unrest by causing violence within their political unrest. If we look at the Irish Republic Army, they were using violence. They were using real political unrest. They were launching hand grenades and missile launchers and doing all sorts of things. The impact to this is it destroys the cause. It destroys the party's cause to use the violence because, especially within the Tea Party, it destroys their cause to use the violence. And the B point on this is results in oppressive leadership. If we look in Honduras, it was a bloodless, I guess you call it an overthrowing of government. It was bloodless. It was without violence. But if we look at Hitler, Hitler was loved by his people. The people of Germany loved Hitler. They saw him as this great man that would result in great things. So the results of a non-violent political unrest, it tends to be oppression. Now let's take a moment and look at their case. Didn't flip enough. Yes, I did. Okay. So many pages falling all over the place. Okay.
It's going on YouTube.
Woohoo!
Point of information.
Yes.
Hitler, that would not, wait, sorry, could you clarify the Hitler point? I didn't understand that.
The Hitler point, Hitler was loved by his people, so it was not it was not violent in that aspect, and because it was not violent, it led to, in this instance, an oppressive
But they loved
leadership.
him as a leader.
The people of Germany initially loved him as a leader, yes.
Okay.
Now let's look at the government team's first justification. This was talking about how democracy, if you think back to during the speech, I asked a point of information talking about, does political unrest always lead to democracy? No, it does not always lead to democracy. There are times where political unrest will actually decrease democracy. Now let's take a moment and look at their second justification. I can't see the timepiece. And let's look at their Saudi Arabia argument. And in this example, it was just a threat of violence. It was not actual violence. So through the opposition's definition of the terms within today's debate on what makes it a real political unrest, we can see that Saudi Arabia is not actually an example of real political unrest. It is just political unrest. Now, since I still have some time, let's take a moment and actually look at the second contention, talking about how it's not now, but we need to do it later. The government, okay. The world economy is suffering. The 2008 crisis is still in effect. Now is not the time for a real political unrest. The harm to the economy will have real impacts because lives are currently on the line because food prices have actually increased by 7%. So as we can see, the government is riding on the backs of their friends right now, but they will actually be having to govern through their enemies afterwards. Thank you.